All right, so at the end of part one, I was just talking about some of the issues that the so-called black man should be prioritizing, as opposed to falling for a lot of these red herrings about race and all this nonsense about, where America is going. If you understand the economy and the money system, this place is going nowhere and it's going there fast. That's why you have what's called hyperinflation. But just to get back to the theme at the end of part one, in my life experience, the things that I've observed and that I've seen, 90% of people's problems, when you really scrutinize it and just pay attention, when you come across different people in life, 90% of the problems that these different people have is normally something of their own causing, right? That they try to blame on other things. What I found in life is that many people like confusion. They don't like order, particularly women. And men who are weak to the spirit of the woman, they tend to also go along with that same type of that same type of thought process, that same type of method of living. And sometimes people purposefully sabotage themselves, their own life, and their own relationships, just because they want to go through that destruction and rebuild cycle. I was talking about something like that with a brother last night on the phone. And I was telling him it's probably something that I will do a video on in the future. A lot of you brothers are in relationships with these women and you've been with them for 3 years, 4 years. And the woman is getting to be 28, 29 years old. And it's something that I call the 30-year-old itch. A lot of with women, a lot of times what females will do when they get in their late 20s, particularly around 28 and a half, 29 years old, they start to analyze their life. And even if they're in a functional relationship with a good man, if he hasn't, quote unquote, put a ring on it, or they're evaluating their own life and they're not where they should be in life, they will destroy the whole thing. All right, just for the sake of doing it. And oftentimes those women end up being the same ones that are in very bad situations in their mid to late 30s because they made that bad decision. Right? That's just an example of how people cause problems in their own life. A lot of our people are causing their own problems with their bad decision. When I say our, I'm talking about so-called black people. They make a lot of bad decisions. Our people make a lot of bad decisions. And it's based off of a very very negative thought process that is generational now. And this is why you're seeing this fracturing in the so-called black community. And the Negroes who are trying to pull all so-called blacks back into the fold of self-misery and self-pity, they're the ones who you see who I call internet revolutionaries, who love to throw around the word coon. Everybody's a coon. If you don't want to come on the internet and talk about this and that, but do nothing in real life. All right. These are the real problems. The problem is not 2,000 or 3,000 silly white boys in Charlottesville, Virginia. All right. They're nothing.
Point. And I think that's the point that needs to be made.
Okay, it should not be ignored. You're absolutely right. But it also shouldn't be taken at face value in faith. It should be examined, discussed, and in fact debated to find out what is the truth of our situation. The truth of our situation is this, that there is racism in America. And Max carried it a step further. There is racial injustice in this country as well. However, this is not the attorney in me. This is the pragmatic human being in me. If you leave it at that, if you leave it at abstractions of oppression or racial injustice, you leave it in a realm where it is ultimately unsolvable.
I completely agree. Completely agree. And this is why I talk about the sickening and perverse circular conversations that pervade this society about race and about gender and all these other conversations that cannot be solved. And this is why I've said, not to digress, but this is why I've stated in the past to a lot of the so-called liberal black females that might see my videos, do not come on my comment section with the black men of this and black men of that. No, that's not going to happen here. That's an attempt to distract the so-called black man away from what he really should be thinking about. That's not going to happen here because those conversations have no solution. I have no interest in conversations or arguments that have no solution. Right? The magical, mystical conversation that liberal blacks are always trying to get from liberal whites is a conversation that has no solution. Okay? It's only for the emotional and the mental bettering of the so-called liberal black man and woman. Because, like I said, they are depressed. They have mental issues. Michael Bennett has a mental issue. He has a mental disorder. He has self-esteem problems. He has that same Stockholm syndrome that Colin Kaepernick accused Michael Vick of having, that Colin Kaepernick himself has. Right? Who else but somebody with Stockholm syndrome would beg their oppressor for equality? That doesn't even make sense. Why would your oppressor grant you equality? Don't you have to take it? No. Really, don't you have to take supremacy? I mean, really, from a social perspective, other than through the implementation of laws, what is equality? What is that? There's no two things equal anywhere in this, in this society that we live in, anywhere in this reality that we live in. There's no two things equal. So, I mean, what really are you looking for? This is why they've started all these libertarian movements like fat shaming and slut shaming. They really want to try to force respect on entities that don't deserve respect. And the so-called black man has allowed himself to be grouped in with these different degenerate groups like homosexuals and whores and people who have self or who have gender identity disorder, people who have weight issues. Like you've allowed yourself to be grouped in with them. You're supposed to be a king, man. Get it together.
A, it's unsolvable, and B, you have a hard time persuading people based upon loose terms like that.
I agree. Well, people like to hear what your end game is. If all you're doing is talking in open rhetoric, I mean, what really is your point? You're just trying to be seen.
And C, it can be distorted outside of reality.
That's an excellent
Hold
point,
on really quick. So the pragmatic side of me says, let's talk about specifically what you want to do. Is it the instances of unarmed black men being killed? Let's look at each of those instances. We have to. But really quickly, the mistake that Sean King is making, I feel like, is the same one.
Well, it's the headline. I think he's right. He doesn't write the headline.
Well, let me tell you something.
Okay.
Those guys in Charlottesville,
Right.
they don't know what the United States of America is about. I'm telling you right now, they do not know the values instilled in the United States Constitution or the Declaration of Independence. They don't know what it means to have individual rights and be judged by the content of your thoughts and not the color of your skin. They don't know that. And so when Sean King says that's the foundation of America, I know this is weak, but America, let me just say something.
We're running out of time. That's all right.
We are. I haven't got it. I'm
It's
sorry.
okay. It's all right.
I haven't been told that.
Right.
That's America's founding.
Right.
We
Well,
have original sin,
I-
Stephen
I-
A. We have deep original
ahead,
sin.
I think you make a lot of valid points. And furthermore, I think it's important that you're a white guy who's also conservative politically, and you address the reality of the situation and say, here is where I philosophically differ with some of the points you're making. And
Yeah, but what does that even mean? He's a white guy who's conservative politically, but he's ready to address racism. Is that supposed to imply that Caucasians that are so-called liberal are ready to address racism? Right. Your soliloquy in and of itself shows you what the so-called Caucasian liberal is really about. It's just pandering to the emotions of these weak-minded niggas. Because you yourself did not address any of the real issues, because the so-called liberal is like the Wizard of Oz. Remember, the Wizard of Oz was looked at as this all-powerful being, but when you went behind the curtain, he was just a scared little man. It's the same thing with the Caucasian liberal. They know their power is in keeping themselves distant away from the people that they keep talking about, like that they keep acting like they care about. How many Caucasian, really affluent Caucasian liberals are actually living around the people that they claim to represent? The only difference between the Caucasian liberal and the Caucasian conservative is that the Caucasian conservative will tell you how they feel to your face, presumably, and the Caucasian liberal is going to pat you on the back, but, on his hand is going to be poison that he's going to rub into your back. The Caucasian conservative will stab you or shoot you in your chest. That's the only difference. I'd rather deal with the enemy that's in my face than the one that's trying to act like he's my friend. People like Max Kellerman, do not have your best interests at heart.
And that's very important.
Yeah.
That's very important to see. Finally, I want to make this point.
Damn, the so-called black man can't get a word in, and the conversation is supposedly about racism. That shows you once again how the liberal Caucasian will bogart the conversation.
When you say that's not what America's about, I agree with you. We should look toward our better angels and intentions. However, when Colin...
What angels? What angels are you talking about? America was founded by a bunch of warlocks. Are you kidding me? Ben Franklin and Thomas Jefferson and George Washington. These guys were all warlocks, man. What you call high-level Masons. They're Luciferians, man.
Colin Kaepernick takes a knee during the national anthem, a verse that we no longer sing because we can make ourselves better, is a racist verse. I mean, there's a racist verse that's left out.
I respectfully just say this. Again, I'm the black person on the set.
I knew he was going to pull that card.
And from our lens, it's a bit different. You say it's unsolvable. We say it's very solvable. Admit your wrongs and go about the business of diligently eradicating those wrongs to make sure that history doesn't repeat itself. What we're seeing today,
Hold up. That's why, once again, this is why I analogize it to a very dysfunctional relationship. When you see people who are always arguing and always fighting and breaking up and making up, what is that usually based out of? One or both parties have a very distorted view of what the relationship is and what it should be. For Stephen A. Smith to sit here and say, admit you're wrong. Who is the you're? Is it all white people? Is it the elite Caucasians? Is it the affluent Caucasians? Who is you that has to admit that they're wrong? Because once again, real history shows you that the vast majority of these Caucasians did not own slaves. They're the descendants of white trash. I've said that numerous times. All right. A lot of the affluent Caucasians today, yes, they benefited from a system that is geared towards them, but they did not. Most of them did not come from a family of slave owners. The vast majority of them did not. All right. So once again, so-called black people have to be very, very careful what they in regards to what they claim and what they allege that they want, because you just might get it. If they came tomorrow and said, you know what, we're going to reimburse so-called black people for so-called slavery, but in order to do so, we're going to have to evaluate who comes from who's descended from slaves, as opposed to who owned slaves. So they may come to a white person on your job who you think is white, and they say, sir, your great granddad was a so-called black man and was a slave. We're going to reimburse you. They may come to a so-called black person on your job and say, sir, your great granddad was a Caucasian man who owned slaves. We're going to have to empty your bank account. They may come to you, a so-called black man, and say, sir, your great granddad came here from Ireland. You're not even from the west coast of Africa. So you're not getting a penny. All right. In order to see when the money starts to flow, which is never going to happen anyway, everything that I just said is purely hypothetical. But when we start talking about money and reimbursement, that's when they're going to start to open up the real historical records. That's when that's going to happen. That's when they're going to start opening up those basements, those sealed basements underneath those museums, and revealing the real family and genealogical records that they have, and how so-called blacks actually got here to America, and how so-called blacks were actually already here in the Americas when a lot of the Europeans, both black and white, came here. All right. So it's just, like I said before, it's just a comedy of errors. It's just a lot of people just talking shit and looking for attention. A lot of these black male athletes, well, I shouldn't say a lot, but the ones of them who are protesting, 99% of them, they got the mentality of a damn 14-year-old girl.
In the 60s, we saw in the 50s, we saw in the 40s. That's the problem.
Michael Bennett, by the way, showing real leadership has credibility here because he's shown leadership far before this has happened consistently.
Leadership in what way? All right. Leadership is not standing up in front of a crowd and talking. Anybody can do that. Leadership is showing the ability to use prudence, wisdom, and proper decision-making, discretion, and actually being knowledgeable of the things that you're speaking about. What knowledge has he shown? All right. I mean, he's shown that he can go on emotional diatribes. I mean, other than that, and that he can speak out of turn and really not know what the hell he's talking about. So in other words, he's the perfect liberal black pawn for you, Max. That's why you like him.
And to wrap that all up with these athletes speaking at the stick to sports days are over. And obviously,
well, of course, we know the stick to sports days are over because you people in the liberal sports media are encouraging them to speak so that you can have a good news cycle for the summer. I mean, let's be for real. July and August are they have a dearth of sports stories. So, of course, you guys love all this shit because it gives you something to talk about so that you guys can act like you're racial experts. That's all it's really about. It's not about solving any issues or any problems. It's easy to sit here and be liberal until they come to your door and say, look, Max and Molly and Will, under the new reimbursement program that the United States government has implemented to finally shut the liberal black man up and the liberal black woman up, we're going to have to empty your coffers. We're going to have to empty your bank account. How do you like that? Well, wait a minute. I was just saying I thought everything should be fair. I wasn't saying, well, we're going to make things fair. Are you ready to put your money where your mouth is? Oh, fuck these niggers. Fuck this.
obviously this was deemed a state of emergency yesterday. It's a crisis. We hope to continue to see them use their platform. Will,
No, I don't hope to see them use their platform for anything. I hope to see the so-called black man become informed and try to gain or regain a ruling class mentality and go back to the proper order of things. All right, looking up towards the higher powers and not looking towards these other races, particularly the so-called Caucasian man and woman, for validation. That's why that's why a lot of these cats have so many self-esteem issues, man. That's why you got these guys all over the internet. Everybody's a coon if they disagree with their woman worshiping, begging a white man for equality philosophy, man. Get the hell out of here. All right, so now we left off with the Stephen A. Smith, Max Kellerman show. Now we're going to pick up with Jemele Hill and Michael Smith, the two resident liberal revolutionaries that are on television. They're also going to cover the Michael Bennett storyline, but they're going to start off with a little preamble about Des Bryant, and they're going to kind of try to embarrass Des Bryant or shame him for not embracing the liberal Negro philosophy by juxtaposing him with Michael Bennett. Let's see what happens.
All right, Des Bryant, speaking of Cowboys, told reporters yesterday that he had nothing to say about the national anthem protest, but then he spent a lot of time on Twitter defending his comments to upset fans. Des tweeted he had a family to feed, and when another fan criticized his lack of response, he said, bruh, it's the wrong place and time to be talking about that.
And look, let me tell you something. Des Bryant should not even be responding to those idiots on Twitter. All right? Twitter is where the twits are. And the emblem of Twitter is the bluebird. Why is it? Because Twitter is for mind control. That's really just, a lot of these social media outlets are just, basically just experiments to see how they can socially engineer the people by having them come on and spew a lot of their vain and nonsensical rhetoric. All right. Des Bryant is not supposed to be going back and forth with a lot of these idiot fans and these dumbass internet revolutionaries who are going to try to give him a hard time for not getting down on one knee and getting down for the cause. All right. If niggas is really about that, go bum rush the White House if you're really about that. Come on, man. The fuck out of here.
I care about my black people. At the same time, I have a family. Is it fair or unfair to criticize Des Bryant for his stance?
You see what the black woman did? The liberal black woman, she put the term stance in air quotes. Because remember, so-called black man, a lot of these liberal black women, they want the so-called black man to fall on the sword for a fake revolution. Because he's supposed to be trying to, once again, prove something to her. That's why if you'll notice, most of these internet revolutionaries are also black woman is God niggas. All right? I mean, how disrespectful is that? I wonder if either one of these two niggas would get down on one knee with Kaepernick. I seriously doubt it. And I noticed Michael Smith got his haircut shaved even lower. I wonder why. Why isn't he growing his afro out?
It's definitely fair. And in fairness, I've said this a bunch of times ever since these anthem protests started. Patriotism and posture are mutually exclusive. There are plenty of people who fancy themselves as patriots, who think they're about what America is about, who stand and salute the flag and wear, and wave the flag, this, that, and the other, that are the worst that this country has to offer, because they like that when liberty and justice for some, it applies to them, okay? So a lot of people out here call themselves patriots who are not. So I don't want... Yeah,
well, a lot of people call themselves revolutionaries and they not. There's a reason why homeboy said the revolution will not be televised. A lot of you people on television talking all that revolutionary shit. We all know if your boss came to you tomorrow and said, Michael Smith, Jemele Hill, we're going to cut a lot of that rhetoric out of our show. We're going to tone it down. You're not going to say, oh, no, I can't do that. We have to rep for our people. You're going to say, yes, sir. Because a lot of the rhetoric that you see on television that they're spewing, this is why I call them the liberal sports media. I remember somebody asked me in the comments, why do you call it the liberal sports media? Because they're just a tentacle of the liberal media at large. That's their job. That's why they're constantly talking about quote unquote race on ESPN. All right. That's part of their shtick. That's what they do.
I don't want to say that you have to protest the national anthem in order to be down for the cause. There are lots of people who are standing for the anthem who are doing tremendous work on behalf of social change. Kenny Stills of the Dolphins, kneeled last year, is not this year.
Yeah, because it was a bullshit protest last year and it's still one this year. Right? It meant nothing last year and it means nothing now. And neither one of you two niggas are going to kneel for the anthem. You wouldn't even think about it.
Okay, we already talked about the fact that Colin Kaepernick, for a variety of reasons, already acknowledged that he was not going to continue it. So you don't have to kneel or protest the anthem.
Yes, Colin Kaepernick acknowledged that he's not going to do it because he knew that he was full of shit last year, and he wanted to get back up and get paid. That's why I did a series called, Colin Kaepernick, he's standing up for that paycheck. All right. And a lot of the internet revolutionaries, they got mad about that. But he understood, wow, damn, I really have no end game, and this is not going anywhere. This is never going to end, because I really only started to sit out on it because I was going through, an emotional moment in regards to what was going on over social media. And wow, this is not going to end. I have no plan, and I need to get paid
in order to fight this fight. That said, I'm real disappointed in Des Bryant. I'm not shocked, but I'm real disappointed, because you can say, hey, I believe in the cause, but I have my reasons for wanting to salute the flag and rise for the anthem out of respect.
No, he doesn't have to say he believes in your cause. Once again, with these liberal niggas, people don't have to think how you want them to think, man. Everybody doesn't want to have to go and get a hug from the white man, or as you say, want quote unquote equality, right? That imaginary carrot in the sky that you niggas keep trying to grab at. None of you, I don't hear none of you say, look, we just want to have our own thing. We don't want to be bothered. We want to set up our own businesses, our own economy, and have our own police force. None of you niggas say that. I haven't heard one of you say that. All of y'all that go down there marching, like the group that went against the white nationalists, they were a mishmash of degenerates, right? And I guarantee you, most of the so-called blacks that were in that crowd were probably homosexual and lesbian, because those are the ones who tend to gravitate towards that white liberal bullshit.
That's fine. Miss me with the I got mouths to feed. Because they got plenty of people out here and got a pot to piss in or window to throw it out of that's putting their lives and their livelihoods on the line.
And that's why they're going out there, because they don't have nothing to lose. That's why. And they following behind any single fake-ass revolution so that they can feel like they're a part of something, because they feel like their lives are meaningless because they don't have shit. Des Bryant came from nothing. And yes, that's what his mindset should be on, feeding his family. Because God forbid, if he can't play football anymore, you're not going to feed him. You're going to report it and say, oh, man, that's so bad what's happening to Des Bryant. That's what you're going to do.
For the people who can't speak for themselves. So
everybody can speak for themselves today. That's why you got social media. Everybody can go get a microphone and stand on the corner. Everybody has a YouTube account in this day and age, a Facebook account, Twitter, Snapchat. Broke niggas can get on Snapchat and do a bunch of stupid ass dances. They can get on Snapchat and Instagram and all that other shit and give you their own personal philosophy on life. Nobody's voiceless now. All that is bullshit. Just knock it off.
Des Bryant, and for that matter, Hugh Jackson or Jermichael Finley, anybody else that wants to sit up here and echo what Roger Goodell said about, I agree with your message, but not the way you're doing it. Miss me with that. That's weak. That's real weak.
So
I tell you, boy, these television revolutionaries, they get real amped up, but they never leave their chair. Just like the internet revolutionaries, they get real amped up, but they never leave their keyboard. Ain't that some shit?
I think what Des missed is the fact that
how could he miss something when he's just stating his opinion?
He feels that way. It's problematic in itself that he automatically he knew, just as a person of color, just as a black man, that I know that if I speak out, that's going to impact the kind of money that I make.
Right.
That right there, that's a problem.
Yeah.
That's a really big problem, because what people are speaking out about, the change they're trying to create, are changes that make us a better country, make us all better people.
You see, now, didn't I say that that's how the so-called liberals think? I know what's best for you. And every time I pause it when this idiot's talking, she always has the prototypical, stereotypical black woman face. Eyes wide open, mouth wide open, talking a lot of hot nothing. Des Bryant should come on and say, you know what, the best thing for so-called black people is for us to stop trying to sew fake hair into our heads, because it shows a lack of confidence in who you are. Jamel Hill, you should wear your hair natural. Watch how quickly she flips it and says, oh, who are you to tell me about how I should wear my hair? All right. Doesn't the wearing of fake hair affect not just other black women, but numerous young black girls across America, across the world? Right? Affect their self-image. I guess she thinks she's keeping it quote unquote black because she has them braid the fake hair. Oh man, these people are something else.
People, you should want to be a part of that. Now, in fairness, everybody's not equipped to do that.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, like you two. That's why. How come y'all wasn't in Charlottesville? This is why I keep asking these internet and all these other people who got all this talk. Where are you guys at? Why haven't you guys tracked down Colin Kaepernick and said, Colin, what can I do to help? The next demonstration you have, I'm going there. You know why you can't do that? Because Colin Kaepernick ain't trying to have a demonstration because he don't got shit to say. And y'all have nothing to follow him for.
And so if you want to tap out and say, hey, I applaud what they're doing over there.
Yeah, that's not how I roll.
Who I am.
The majority of players aren't.
He just said that. He just said he can't be bothered with it. He got to focus on his family. You know, let me tell you something, man. I couldn't be no professional athlete because I would come on a fucking show and demolish the both of these motherfuckers, man. I mean, the nerve, the presumptuousness of these people to tell other people what they're supposed to prioritize when you don't even have your own fucking plan and end game in order. None of these niggas could tell you what their end game is other than quote unquote equality. Some shit that Martin Luther King was supposed to have gotten done 50 years ago. So then if you niggas are still looking for that, what the hell happened 50 years ago? Either you saying that what Martin Luther King did was in vain or that what he got accomplished really hasn't worked. Either way, it's time to look for a new plan, ain't it?
Correct. And I get that and I understand that. And I'd rather you tap out than get out there and say something crazy that might undermine the larger cause.
Yes, the larger cause, which is you getting a hug from the so-called white man and white woman. That's why. So she's talking about getting out there and saying the wrong thing. When are you going to get out there and say anything other than being on TV talking a whole lot of hot shit?
Many have done.
Exactly. So I'd rather you do that. But at the same time, he's sending a awful message to people to say, you know what, I'd rather worry about mine than worry about everybody
else. But isn't that the message that NFL owners probably want? That when Colin Kaepernick is the messenger for their part, like, hey, if you step out of line, this is what happens. But
no, Colin Kaepernick is the messenger that if you're more trouble than you're worth, we're just not going to bring you back. The same with Michael Sam. Michael Sam was a homosexual that couldn't play. He's out the league. He's not coming back. Colin Kaepernick is a guy who's bringing all type of distractions to the league. He's causing them to lose money on their bottom line, and he's a backup quarterback, so he's not coming back. If Colin Kaepernick was playing on the level of Tom Brady, then yes, he would be back and they would deal with his bullshit. But he can't play on that level, so that's all there is to it. Des Bryant is a guy who has grown a lot as a person. He was a degenerate a few years ago. He came from a degenerate background. He really is a miracle in and of himself that he's even in the NFL. And now these two fucking numbnuts, they're trying to tell him to throw his body on the sword for a fake ass movement that they can't even quantify. If you were to ask both of these two dumbass niggas what the end game is, they wouldn't be able to tell you. It's equality. How could you ask me that? No, a real end game is laying out point by point what exactly you want and how you want to get there. Well, that's not our job. It's the white man's job to figure it out. So you want the so-called white man to work on something that's your brainchild and you have no plan for. So in other words, you're like a little school kid who wants a teacher to help you finish your project. The fuck out of here.
But there are plenty of players who are still fighting the fight, who are gainfully employed right now. We're going to talk about them, you know what, without further ado, because your money is not going to be compromised. Maybe your brand in certain quarters, but the people that would support you or would not support you because you're standing up for what you believe in, you don't want those people's support to begin with.
And you better thank God that other people didn't think that way.
So, of course.
Oh, please. Let me tell you something. None of these so-called television revolutionaries in the black liberal media, none of them are even really aware of the parameters behind why a lot of athletes stood for what they stood for back in the 60s. They're just talking.
Exactly. Of course, at the under end of the social change spectrum, you have the aforementioned Michael Bennett, who plans to sit for the national anthem all season. Now, we asked him earlier this afternoon what he thinks about Des Bryant's way of thinking.
Wait a minute. Look at all them Negroes standing up in front of Michael Bennett. Are they sellouts too? Must be a lot of sellouts in the NFL.
What would you say to the Hugh Jacksons of the world who said that he would prefer or hope that his players didn't protest? Jermichael Finley has spoken out against these anthem protests. And then you have Des Bryant saying, hey, I got mouths to feed. That's not what I'm into. What message would you send to people who aren't just neutral but are saying, no, that's not the way to do it?
I would say, if you don't do it right now, who's going to do it? You might be living a great life now, but it's about your legacy and your kids and their kids' kids. If they live in a world where they're not going to be accepted for the color of their skin once again.
Accepted by who? Your God, the white man, right? This is the type of bullshit that I'm talking about. The main thing that a man could teach his children is about their history. So once they know their history, then they know where they're going. If all you have to teach your kids or show your kids is how important it is for them to be viewed as equal by Caucasians, then what are you really teaching them? Other than you can only be validated by those people. These niggas, they have a really sick psychoses, man. Like, they really think that they're empowering themselves and each other with this nonsense.
They won't want to be making choices because where they're born. They won't be able to have things because of their sexual preference. They won't.
You see that? I told you. This is what these liberal Negroes are about. Right? It's a Trojan horse. They want you to think that it's for racial liberation. They want the so-called black man to group himself in with all these degenerates. Homosexuals and lesbians and transgenders and pansexuals and all this other crazy shit. This guy's fucking nuts.
They won't be able to do things, then what's the point? The point is to make sure that we challenge ourselves to not let the world go back to what it used to be. Segregated bathrooms, segregated schools.
What is this guy talking about? What the fuck are these Negroes talking about? Has there been any bills passed to go back to segregation? But that shows you how important it is for him to be able to be around a Caucasian. He's trying to front like he's pro-black. No, you're not. You're pro-white.
Schools, all those different things where people felt like they weren't a part of society, and why go back there? I challenge these young brothers and old brothers to go out and really go into the community and feel the pain and feel the passion that people are living through every single day.
Yeah, they living through a lot of pain and passion, so-called black man is, because he has nobody to teach him anything real. He's learning a lot of things from his mother. And it's no disrespect. There's not much that a woman can really teach a child past the age of 4. And even the so-called white man knows that, which is why his school system starts at about that age. Okay? It's not much a woman could teach a child past the age of 4. People might not like that. It is what it is.
Whether it's on native reservations, whether it's in the black communities, the Hispanic communities, just see how people are living and see how people are feeling. I challenge them to go out there and do that. And I know it's so hard. It's easy to be selfish at this point and be like, it's just about me. Why would I want to do this? But at the end of the day...
No, actually, Des didn't say it was just about him. He actually said he had a family and mouths to feed. That's what he was concerned with. That's why he said what he said. And he should think like that. Because I guarantee you, God forbid something happened to Des, you're not going to feed his kids, man. You're just going to talk shit on television. History is filled with a bunch of niggas that will get on TV and talk all this stuff on TV about, oh, we got to do this for the people, not for the people. And come to find out they was raping them, robbing them blind.
Today, this life is about being selfless and how much can you give back to your community and how much can you change your society that you're part of. At the end of the day, if it's all about the catches and the wins, then what's the point? It really is not going to matter. You're not going to take any ball with you. You're not going to take any trophy with you. All you can do is take your morals and what you did for your community and what you did for your family. And to me, that's the most important thing.
And I'm sure Des will say the same thing, which is why he said he's putting his family first. He said it's about what you do for your family. All right, you can't do nothing for your race of people if they don't even know what their race is. Our people have to be informed, man. They have to be properly informed. A lot of our people are suffering because they don't know anything about their history, their culture. They don't know anything about the money system. All right. Our young men are not taught that they have gifts and that they have skills that they have to try to perfect and improve on and not always be trying to work for somebody else. You might have to work for somebody else for a while, but be building up towards having your own. That's how you can help yourself in this kingdom while it's still around. It's not going to be around much longer. But while it is, that's how you can get a little relief from a lot of the bullshit. All right. Our people, especially our young men, are trained to be slaves and servants. Oh, go get a job. Just work at that job. Oh, you got a good job. Why does a black man do that and think like that for? To please the woman. That's why. But anyway, you know what? We'll pick it up on part 3.